Lower Manhattan, New York City, September 11th, 2001. This tragic event marked the declaration of a global war on terror led by the United States government and its allies. The world changed after 9/11.
September the 11th, for me, was a wake-up call.
Since then, governments across the world have introduced anti-terror laws which have compromised our essential liberties. Here in the UK, these laws are increasingly being used to discipline those who are outspoken about the government's behaviour. The Western invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq have claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. The British government lied to the public about the threat posed from Saddam Hussein.
There is a threat from Saddam Hussein, and the weapons of mass destruction that he has acquired is not in doubt at all.
No weapons of mass destruction were ever found in Iraq.
Well, one only has to refer to the Downing Street memo, in which Richard Dearlove told Tony Blair that the United States had committed to a policy of regime change based upon the existence of weapons of mass destruction, that this was a very thin case that couldn't be sustained with any facts, and yet, because regime change was decided upon, the intelligence would be fixed to the policy.
Former servicemen and women have testified that the methods used in these wars have been illegal and inhumane.
Naked prisoners on dog leads, covered in shit, made to eat shit, terrorised by dogs.
And Blair's got the cheek to say that he's got God on his side as well. That's what really annoys me.
God?
You could basically kill anybody you wanted. I mean, it was that easy. You didn't even have to get off and dig a hole or anything like that. All you had to do was have something there for a picture. You were driving down the road, 3 in the morning, there's a guy on the side of the road, shoot him, throw a shovel off. There you go.
The white phosphorus will disperse in a cloud. And when it makes contact with skin, then it's absolutely irreversible damage, burning flesh to the bone. It doesn't necessarily burn clothes, but it will burn the skin underneath clothes.
Far from enjoying peaceful and democratic regimes, the people of Afghanistan and Iraq are now living in violent and unstable societies. British companies have made profits in excess of 1.1 billion from the Iraq War. Oil and gas deals signed in Afghanistan and Iraq have benefited Western corporations, not the people of the Middle East. Several memos now in the public domain confirm that the British Prime Minister and the American President agreed to invade Iraq regardless of what the UN Security Council decided. According to a leaked official memo, Bush and Blair discussed flying U-2 spy planes disguised in UN colours over Iraq to provoke Saddam Hussein into retaliation. This is just more evidence of the smoke and mirror tactics adopted by the Western power elite. For a number of years now, it has been readily accepted that the official story of 9/11 does not stand up to independent scrutiny. In the 5 years since, irrefutable evidence has emerged indicating that 9/11 was an inside job.
We started running, floor by floor, instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated. They were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
Politicians, scientists, journalists, academics, researchers, even Hollywood actors have gone public. Thousands of 9/11 activists around the world have been spreading the facts. Yet the mass media still barely covers this mounting body of evidence and ignores the views of millions in the US and tens of millions across the world. In the year 2000, a document entitled Rebuilding America's Defenses was published by a private right-wing US think tank known as the Project for the New American Century, or the neocons. In it, they laid out their plans for Middle East domination in order to maintain control of the world's energy resources. They noted that a cataclysmic and catalysing event, like the attack on Pearl Harbor during World War II, would help mobilise American opinion behind their war agenda. 9/11 was that event. As a result, the majority of British politicians supported the US-led war on terror. Recently, the UK and Ireland 9/11 Truth movement have lobbied MPs to take a look at the compelling evidence that contradicts the official story. Judging from their responses, it appears most MPs deem themselves too busy to even consider the possibility that they have been duped for so long. Unfortunately, the majority dismiss rigorous scientific research and objective evidence as conspiracy theories. It is simply no longer plausible that the British government and its security services are unaware of the facts which indicate that 9/11 and other terrorist attacks were false flag operations. For a number of years, the evidence of MI5 and MI6 complicity in terrorist acts has been publicly available. Undercover intelligence agents who penetrated the IRA have risked their lives to expose the army and MI5's role in arms dealing, terrorist bombings, and the murder of civilians. I know from painful personal experience that MI6 in 1996 funded associates of Osama bin Laden in Libya to carry out an assassination on Colonel Gaddafi. That operation went wrong and killed innocent civilians. Publicly available records confirm that the intelligence services have in the past sheltered and protected terrorists. These include Osama bin Laden, Abu Qatada, and Haroun Aswat. In the 1990s, inquiries conducted by the Italian Parliament concluded that NATO and MI6 had supplied right-wing extremists with arms and explosives. Under the codename Operation Gladio, these were then used to assassinate public figures and cause terrorist atrocities, which were then blamed on left-wing groups. It is now clear that false flag operations are part of a strategy of tension designed to instill fear in the civilian population and create unprovoked hatred towards minority groups. On the 7th of July 2005, several explosions occurred on the public transport system in the City of London. The police initially reported that power surges had caused the blasts. Hours later, this scenario was discounted. In the 2 days that followed, different accounts emerged concerning the times that the bombs detonated. 2 days later, London Underground, the Metropolitan Police, and the British Transport Police reported that 3 bombs exploded almost simultaneously on 3 separate tubes at around 0850. Almost an hour later, at approximately 0947, another bomb exploded on a bus in Tavistock Square. 52 passengers were killed. The police and the government have admitted that their knowledge of what happened that morning remains incomplete. Reports released by the Home Office and the Intelligence and Security Committee in May 2006 are loaded with uncertainties and speculation. Yet the government continues to insist that a public inquiry is not necessary. They say that time and resources are not available to investigate Britain's worst ever terrorist attack. Based on information provided by the police and the intelligence and security agencies, but largely not in the public domain, the Home Office's official chronology has only raised more questions than it answers.
If London could survive the Blitz, it can survive 4 miserable bombers like this. I'm not saying there are 4 bombers, 4 miserable events like this.
Little is known for certain of the 4 men's movements and the picture is only further confused by sloppy drafting, unclear sourcing of information, and confusion of speculation and comment. No official has publicly admitted responsibility for compiling the report. On the 7th of July, several interesting stories emerged. Amy Teeble, writing for the Associated Press, reported that the Israeli embassy in London had received a warning of possible terrorist attacks from Scotland Yard, minutes before the bombs exploded. Officials have said Israeli Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did not leave his hotel to attend an economic conference because of this warning. On the day of 7/7, Peter Power, the managing director of Visor Consultants, gave an interview to the BBC and ITN. In those interviews, he made it abundantly clear that his organisation was running a counter-terrorist training exercise which involved bombs going off simultaneously at different London Underground stations.
Today we were running an exercise for a company, bearing in mind I'm now in the private sector, and we sat everybody down in the city, 1,000 people involved in the whole organisation, but the crisis team. And the most peculiar thing was we based our scenario on the simultaneous attacks on the Underground and mainline station. So we had to suddenly switch an exercise from fictional to real. And one of the first things is, get that bureau number. When you have a list of people missing, tell them. And it took a long time.
Just to get this right, you were actually working today on an exercise that envisioned virtually this scenario.
Almost precisely. I was up until 2 o'clock this morning because it's our job, my own company, Visor Consultants. We specialise in helping people to get their crisis management response. How do you jump from slow time thinking to quick time doing? And we chose a scenario with their assistance which is based on a terrorist attack because they're very close to a property occupied by Jewish businessmen. They're in the city, and there are more American banks in the city than there are in the whole of New York. A logical thing to do. And I've still got the...
I was going to say, how extraordinary today must feel for you as it unfolds.
Of all the targets the terrorists could have chosen in London, they apparently elected to attack the same targets as had been envisaged by Visor Consultants in their counter-terrorist training exercise.
It was at 9:30 this morning. We were actually running an exercise for over a company of 1,000 people in London based on simultaneous bombs going off precisely at the railway stations that happened this morning. So I still have the hairs on the back of my neck standing upright.
To get this quite straight, you were running an exercise to see how you would cope with this, and it happened while you were running the exercise?
Precisely. And it was about 9:30 this morning. We'd planned this for a company, and for obvious reasons I don't want to reveal their name, but if they're listening they'll know it. And we had a room full of crisis managers for the first time they met. And so within 5 minutes we made a pretty rapid decision, this is the real one. And so we went through the correct drills of activating crisis management procedures to jump from slow time to quick time thinking and so on.
Peter Power, Visor Consultants and London Underground have refused to release any more details of this counter-terrorist training exercise. According to the Home Office, during the early hours of the 7th of July, 3 men travelled together by car from Leeds to Luton rail station. A 4th drove from Aylesbury to Luton. These 4 men were then apparently observed moving items between the cars before putting on large rucksacks and proceeding to enter Luton station. The men reportedly got a train which left Luton station at 7:40, arriving at King's Cross Thameslink at 8:23, before heading towards the London Underground, splitting up around 7 minutes later.
We contacted the King's Cross and Luton officials. They let us have the databases for that morning. The train was clearly cancelled, and we then interviewed commuters on the platform. They told us that it wasn't running that day, and we got details of how each of the trains that did run were delayed.
The 3 then allegedly boarded tube trains on separate lines. Mohammed Sadiq Khan is presumed to board a westbound Circle Line train. Jermaine Lindsay, a southbound Piccadilly Line train, and Shazad Tanweer, an eastbound Circle Line train. At 10 to 9 that morning, the 3 men each allegedly set off a bomb at almost exactly the same time. From my experience as a counter-terrorist officer, I have knowledge about the kind and amount of explosives that are used in terrorist attacks. The police have said that all the bombs were placed on the floor of the carriages, but they haven't made clear which side of the floor the bombs were placed on. A number of witnesses have described how they saw metal pushing up into the carriage, which would be consistent with bombs being placed underneath the trains.
had just left Edgware Road Station when suddenly they felt they had a massive explosion. And some passengers described how the tiles, the covers on the floor of the train suddenly flew up, raised up.
Witnesses reported seeing flashes and fireballs. Others suffered extreme burns. These occurrences are not consistent with experiments carried out on TATP. Instead, they are much more consistent with the kind of damage caused by dynamite or military explosive like C4. The Intelligence and Security Committee stated in May 2006, post-incident forensic analysis has shown that the explosions were caused by homemade organic peroxide-based devices. This is the only detail of the explosives that has been released. No information about the detonators or the specific type of explosive used has been made public.
I felt a burning sensation on my hands, put my hands up to my face. I was on the floor by that point.
I saw a very bright light, sort of orangey yellow light, and what appeared to be silver sort of lines across, which was the glass flying through the air.
And rather curiously, there are no reliable witnesses who reported seeing the 4 so-called suicide bombers that day in London. In fact, some people have reported that the police tried to pressure them into saying they had seen these 4 alleged suicide bombers. According to the official narrative, the police had recovered documents bearing the names of Khan and Tanweer from the bomb site close to Aldgate Station by midnight on the 7th. 2 days later, MI5 told police that Khan had come to their attention in an earlier investigation. London is the most surveyed city in the world. If the men were really on the tubes that day, then why is there no CCTV coverage of them on the London Underground? According to the Home Office, Hasib Hussain exited King's Cross Underground onto Euston Road, attempted to contact the other 3 men on his mobile before re-entering the station to go to Boots and WH Smith's, where he may have bought a battery. At 9:06, Hussain reportedly went into McDonald's on Euston Road, spending about 10 minutes there. 3 minutes after that, he was reportedly spotted on Gray's Inn Road, before being possibly identified on a number 91 bus from King's Cross to Euston. The official report assumes that he then switched to the number 30 bus at Euston. At 9:47, a bomb went off on a number 30 bus, which after being diverted had ended up at Tavistock Square. A red bus, emblematic of the City of London, was where the 4th and final explosion took place, when it exploded outside the British Medical Association in Tavistock Square. In my opinion, the damage is inconsistent with a single peroxide-based device detonating in one place. Unconfirmed reports by Stagecoach employees have suggested that irregular maintenance work took place on the bus in the weeks prior to 7/7. Although almost all London buses have CCTV, the 3 cameras on the bomb bus were not working that day. There has been no official explanation for this. The entire attack should have been caught on traffic cameras, yet no footage has ever been released. It is also important to note that none of the reported survivors have identified Hasib Hussain as the bus bomber. The official report says Hussain was identified on the 10th of July from a driving licence and other documents recovered from Tavistock Square. The link was then made between these and the missing person report. Police
what
then
are we talking
Hussain
about
to
here?
Tanweer, presumably
Just another map that shows the lies we were told. Great to show Glovers to get them
a day
thinking.
of several apparent breakthroughs.
All right, what are you
Operation
talking about?
Thesis. The police announced that they had found documents belonging to 3 men suspected of carrying out the attacks. That day, police searched a number of properties linked to the men in Leeds and Aylesbury. 18 Alexander Grove.
I lean
Leeds
way toward
quickly
not a
became
globe, but
as the
don't know until I see for myself.
It was later widely reported.
Yeah,
that
you
the
got to
police had
see for
discovered a large
yourself.
quantity of
Nobody can
explosives
nobody
in the
can
flat.
convince you of anything. You have
Although
to
the Home
figure it out
Office
for
report
yourself.
indicated that
And they
Khan,
pull
Tanweer and
answers
Hussain
out of their
had been
ass
linked to the
quicker
suspected
than
bomb
Neil
factory
pulls
at Alexander
burritos out
Grove
of his
by
fat ass.
unspecified
I believe you're talking about
examination.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
There is no other evidence currently available to suggest that any of the 4 suspects had access to this property. There is no
start off
confirmation
by
that
saying
Magdi
space and the
El-Nashar,
shape
the
of the
Egyptian
Earth has
chemistry
been
student, rented the
misdescribed.
flat to the group, as
Are
is
you talking about
suggested
trying
in the official
to explain to
To
other
quote the official report,
people? I guess.
police
Oh, that was
working
quick,
on the theory
wobbly.
that there is a King's Cross link to the 3 train bombs, all being broadly equidistant
That
from
was
there at
quick.
the time of the explosion,
thinking of making
identify a CCTV image of 4 men with rucksacks at King's Cross.
The
recognised Tanweer first from a DVLA
autograph
photograph.
map. What's
The police
that?
identify
What's the
CCTV
autograph
images in
map?
Semaphore.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
That day, the police had also reportedly
James.
received information
Nice to meet
that
you.
4 people
What's
were
the
seen putting on
autograph map?
rucksacks at Luton Station car park. Later on, police carried out 9 controlled explosions on the Micra.
I'm streaming Mind the Gap currently. It's a good documentary, whether you
which was
check
apparently
out
towed away
there
because it
or
didn't have a
somewhere.
parking
It's quite informative.
is
I think
later
I've
traced
seen
to
Mind the Gap.
By the 15th
can't
of July,
remember now.
the police had discovered identification for all 4 suspects at the 4 blast sites.
I almost caught
3
you
days
live
later, the police made it public that they believed Shahzad Tanweer, Mohammed
Yeah,
Sadiq
I think
Khan,
I've seen
Jermaine
Mind the
Lindsay,
Gap. I can't
and
remember what it's
Hussein
about though.
were
I think
responsible
it's
for the
like
blasts in 4
some kind
suicide
of.
attacks.
Is it about
The
mind
statement
control or
was
something?
couched in language which indicated the police had come to their analysis on the basis of limited circumstantial evidence. It was far from a firm conclusion. As the Intelligence
It won
and
a
Security Council
competition.
stated in May 2006,
It won a competition in
the
Japan
devices were
2 years
almost
ago
certainly
for
constructed manually
most
by the bombers
accurate
themselves in
map of the
intentional
world.
suicide attacks. Police are though clear about one thing. The 4 men,
According to
in
who?
no way,
This is a
fitted the
trouble.
established profile of a suicide bomber.
See,
Tanweer, 22, who
this
lived
is-
in Leeds, was a
Okay,
sports science
a little
graduate
while
who
ago,
helped out
speaking
with
of
his
maps,
family's business. Although he drove a Mercedes,
I came across
he'd supposedly hired
some
a Nissan
information
Micra,
on one
which is
channel
reportedly
that
used as the vehicle to transport
pointed
himself,
out that
Khan, and
until
Hussein to
about, what was it,
staff at rental
100
companies
years
had been
ago,
instructed by
150 years
police
ago,
not
there
to
was a
disclose
mountain range
information to journalists
in
or
Africa
investigators.
on the maps,
A number of sources
and then they
have recalled
realized that it
Tanweer
didn't
playing
exist,
cricket
so
with
they had to
friends in
take it out.
Leeds the night before the bombings.
And
According to the Home
so
Office
this is the problem that
he
I
was
have
filmed
with
at Woodall
most
services
maps,
on the M1,
all maps,
buying
basically, and our
arguing with a member
Mercator
of
map
staff over his
has been
change
around for
at
a very
4:54
long
a.m.,
time.
hours before
What,
the
since
blasts.
what was the 1880s or something?
Hussein, 18,
I don't
still
have
lived with
the
his
exact
parents
date,
and his
but I
brother
don't
in
think
Leeds.
it's like it's been around
He
for
had
quite
completed
some.
his MVQs at college and had just been accepted to
Oh,
study.
I just remembered, and it'll kill me if I
He
don't
was
say
engaged
it
to be
was
married.
Aaron Cox was
Lindsay,
trying to say good
19,
age to
born in
before.
Jamaica,
He's
had
a
lived in
flat
Britain
earther
since
and
childhood. Married with a young son,
auditor.
he was expecting his second
cool.
child. A carpet fitter
No.
by trade, he lived in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire
So,
at the time of 7/7,
yeah,
but
so
was
then you've
reportedly
got
considering moving to Leeds.
these maps
Khan, 30,
that
married with a
couldn't
daughter,
possibly
was also
have
expecting his
all
second
the
child.
geographical
The teaching assistant and youth worker
information
from Leeds
accurate
was highly praised by
at the time
colleagues
that
and
they were
students
created,
alike.
and yet have not changed
Access
since
to
they
his
were
local
created.
education authority file
And now
revealed
we've
that
got
Khan had been trusted by
Google
the police
Earth
to the point
that
of helping them in
says
work
they have
designed to
sent
combat the problem
basically
of
planes
gangs
or
in
balloons
Leeds.
or drones and taken
Evidence
pictures
of
of
Khan's
the Earth
pursuit of terrorism
from the
is
sky
far from conclusive.
and pieced it all
It's important
together.
to note
However,
that there
they
are
still
several
could not
reported
have
terrorists with the
possibly
name Mohammed
covered
Khan.
the entire
Media
plane.
stories of
It-
Khan's
It
terrorism
is
links,
inaccurate. It has to be
gleaned through
inaccurate.
anonymous
There's no
security
They
way
admit
that
it.
all that
remain
detail.
unconfirmed.
They didn't
Yeah,
when it
there's
was
no
first
way.
What is
released,
known of
but then
Mohammed
they had
Sadiq
to.
Khan,
They put a
it
little
would seem
disclaimer
unlikely
down the bottom.
that he could
None
have
of
been
this
in a
is accurate,
position
and
to
don't
meet
try and navigate
terrorists
all.
in Israel
Blah,
or
blah,
the
blah.
Philippines.
And you
The
can't
Home
blame
Office
us.
inquiry looked into
If
these
your
That's
Earth is
awesome.
not shaped the same
and
as the one
found
on
that
the
they had
box.
no basis. Soon after the
Yeah.
attacks, allegations
Oh, guess
surfaced
who's here?
of terrorist training
Alex.
and indoctrination at gyms
Get your ass
in Leeds,
Hey,
which
girl.
Khan helped to run. The official narrative found these reports
Oh, bye, Brian.
incomplete,
Night, Brian.
conflicting, and based on
Thanks,
hearsay.
man.
The Home Office admits
He said some really
it
cool
is
stuff.
difficult to be sure what the facts are.
He did, yes.
No reliable evidence has emerged.
Yeah,
that
it is
Tanweer,
a false
Hussein, or
map,
Lindsay
the Mercator
were motivated
projection.
by religious and political issues.
And we've been using it as a,
isn't it?
it is.
The
We've
men
been
were almost
using it as a
certainly
standard
against
map
the war in Iraq,
for, like
a
I
view
said,
shared
at least
by
the
the majority of the
1800s,
British public.
if I'm not wrong, which
Millions
I might
of
be.
people have protested
But
against the Iraq war.
you know, There's no possible
Why would any
way that
Islamic
they have an
terrorist
accurate map.
indiscriminately target people
impossible.
who've actively shown their contempt
Not only that,
for the
there's
British
no
government's
possible way
decision
that they
to
could
send
not
troops
have
to fight
an
an illegal
accurate
war?
map with the exact dimensions of Earth.
After the 7/7
And
bombings,
the way they
the
list
public was
them in
immediately
the
told that the
most
explosions bore the hallmarks
version
of
of what the
Al-Qaeda.
dimensions of Earth
Has
are.
the hallmarks of
They say that there's a bulge 45
an Al-Qaeda-based
kilometers
organisation.
After the
around
incident, the
middle
authorities changed
that's
their
quite
rhetoric
small.
about Al-Qaeda.
And then they got
Politicians
some
were now
bullshit
referring to a
wishy-washy fine
movement
print about
rather
what
than an international
it's
organisation.
to do with
What we are confronting
they're
here
just ass covering shit because there's
is
so
an
many
evil
holes in it.
ideology.
But
The
yeah, that's the
implication
crux
being
of it.
that
for
anyone
them. They
could
say
be part of
that it's,
Al-Qaeda without being connected
otherwise
to
it's very
active
cool.
terrorists.
So that the whole
In fact,
thing
the day
with
after
the
7/7,
pear-shaped Earth
4
is
weeks
gone.
before his
It's not
death,
fatter in
Robin Cook made the
Southern
point
Hemisphere.
in an article in The Guardian.
Officially,
Al-Qaeda,
that's all
literally the
forgotten.
database,
He never
was
said
originally
that.
a computer file of the thousands of mujahideen who
Yeah.
were recruited and trained
So
with help
yeah,
from the
so that's
CIA
the
to defeat the
official
Russians.
version. But the thing is
The
that
government
that should
narrative
be
released in
visible,
May 2006
physically visible
makes it
from all
relatively
their
clear that the
so-called
four men had
satellite
nothing to do
photos. You
with
should
the
be able to
somewhat
see that bulge
mythical
around the
Al-Qaeda
equator,
organisation.
45 kilometers. 45
In the days
kilometers
after
is a fucking
7/7,
high mountain.
a claim
You
on a
consider there's
website hosted in America
no
was reported by the mainstream press as possible
there's no
proof
mountain
of an
higher
Al-Qaeda
than what is
connection.
it? I think
The media covered the story, even though it was
15
obvious
kilometers, somewhere
anyone could
between
make such
10
a claim
and
and post it on the net.
Yeah, exactly. You look it up. It's Tibet.
The video released through Al Jazeera
Convert it to
on the 1st of
kilometers.
September 2005
Right.
So yeah,
did appear to
so imagine a
portray
45
political and
kilometer
religious
high mountain.
motivation.
You'd fucking notice it
Those who knew Khan
Yeah.
questioned the video's authenticity.
from
The
space
lip
in any of
sync
that
is
space.
certainly out at times,
But it
as if
doesn't
it had been
appear.
heavily
you know.
edited. Given that the video
Yeah.
is of unknown provenance, it is highly
Well,
unlikely
these so-called
it would be
space
admissible
photos, they
as evidence in
tend
court.
to show
Other alleged Al-Qaeda videos
the Earth from
have
such a
been deemed by
close
many
range
to
that
be
you can't
hoaxes.
even discern what we're looking
There has
at.
been no expert analysis.
Oh, except then
of the
there's
video's
like pictures of
credibility.
Florida, because
The press insinuated
you know, like
that the video of
that's
Mohammed Sadiq Khan
recognizable.
was evidence
So they'll show
of
you a
his
picture of
involvement with
Florida.
Al-Qaeda terrorists.
But that's
Even
because
if
they
the video is
hover over
completely
Cape
authentic,
Canaveral.
Khan makes
Have you
no
heard they
reference in
backtracked
it to
on the
planning
whole
any attack.
myth they had going for ages
First,
that you
the
could see
authorities
the,
stated
all the
that the
China
men were
in space?
skins.
Because people
No.
kept asking
Not
for photos
previously
of
come
it.
to their
And I was like, well, actually, you
But
can't.
shortly after
Because we're
7/7,
not in
it was
space.
revealed that MI5 had terrorist records of Khan.
Well,
Yeah, so they
that's
say you
interesting.
can't.
If we look at the information in the
Yeah, this
public
only happened about a
domain,
year ago or
then it
something. I
certainly
got
does
that off
appear that Khan
you know,
may have intended
Jason
to
C.
fight
Styles
war
and
in
Antonio
occupied
and
zones
Sergey
like
and all
Iraq
them
or
in Skype.
Palestine, especially if
Flat Earth
MI5's
Connor,
recording
it's
of him
yeah,
discussing
mostly
jihad
research
abroad
for
is
social
genuine.
too, but it's just
If the
making the
recording is
difference
authentic,
between
then
flat earthers
MI5
who are
has
all
serious
about the
questions to
personality
answer.
competition
If
and flat
Khan
earthers
did
who
come to
actually want to
attention
study
on
the
the
subject
periphery of a terrorist investigation
and research.
and was not a threat, as MI5 have asserted, then it is reasonable to speculate that he may have been an agent of the intelligence
Yeah.
services. If this was the case, then he would
Yeah,
have
it's
had to behave like an
interesting how
extremist
they'll
in order to win
admit
the
to
trust
stuff,
of
like the
those
fact that
he was
all of their
tasked to
images
report on.
are computer
If these are
generated,
clean skins, how
and
can we
you
blame
can
the
tell
security
this to
services
a
for not
sleeper
having
and
been on
they
their
won't
trail?
get it.
As it's
They'll
turned
just
out,
make
as
an
I think was
excuse for it.
predictable
Well, it
and
has to
predicted,
be
this has turned out to be
because,
not the case.
hey, a conspiracy
Really,
mystic
the
is
level
back.
of information that was coming in
It
about
has
Khan,
to
Tell her to
be
come on. She keeps
because,
coming back.
particularly these American reports, especially, which now seem to be
because
being backed up by the
XYZ,
actual American
and
authorities, not
you
just
know,
appearing in an author's book.
I just
But they
remember
tipped
when
off
I
the
was
British about the
a
specifics of
child
Khan. This was
watching
quite a
these
serious plot in the
so-called
United States
space
that we were talking about,
programs
an attempt to blow up
on television,
an attempt to blow up
and
synagogues and so on.
I kept asking my
amount of
parents,
information
why is
coming
it a
in and the quality of
cartoon?
information coming in. The fact
Why
that
doesn't,
has
if
been so
they're in
consistently
space
overlooked,
and
it
these
would
are,
appear
they're
by the
taking
security service
pictures of
MI5,
these
to me
things from
suggests really only
space,
one of two
why
options.
is it a
Either A,
cartoon?
we've got a level of
And my
incompetence
parents
that
would just
would be
say,
unusual even for the
yeah,
security
that's a
service,
good
but B,
question.
possibly, and this is a possibility,
Like,
his
Right,
man
because
Khan
it's
may
a
even be
painting, it's a digital painting. So
it's difficult otherwise to see how it can be that they've so covered his tracks in the interim.
And they never, ever showed real pictures, real photos, ever.
Rather than being officially released
and
to
I
the
said
public,
also,
or seemingly
how did it get back
even
to
the
Earth
government.
so fast?
The time has
How
come
did it
for our
get into
laws to
space
change.
so fast?
It is no
Like,
longer
it doesn't
acceptable
even make sense.
that the intelligence
The
services
math
can
didn't
hide
add up.
behind a veil
when
of
they can't
secrecy
actually go
and
that
play
fast.
games
Because
with
if
the
you do the
media,
calculations
the
for how fast a metal can go in
From
air.
my own
before it
experience
starts
of
to
working
melt.
within the intelligence services,
They
I know
can't
that MI6
actually
runs
go that
agents of
fast.
influence within terrorist
And there's
groups.
no
I
radar
also know that
clocking,
the
there's
secret
no
services provide forged
speed
documentation
camera
and
that's
safe
ever
houses to the
clocked
terrorists they're working with
anything
to
like their
help
full
them
speed.
evade detection and
Ever.
capture. Former US Attorney General and current terrorism expert John Loftus told Fox News that
Yeah.
Aswat had been arrested in 1999 in connection with a terrorist training.
It has a speed limit.
He had been later released after MI6 had interceded
Well,
on his behalf.
the other
clear implication
aspect
was
is that
that
they
Aswat was
claim
an
that
MI6
light
agent.
has a constant speed, and yet
Yeah, and it's made of
calculations have
particles.
proven that it doesn't have a constant speed. And when confronted about it, they said, well, we made it constant speed.
And what's really embarrassing is that the entire British police are out chasing him. And one wing
Yeah,
of the British government,
they
MI6,
just
or the British Secret
do
Service,
whatever
has been
they
hiding
feel like
him.
they need
And this
to
has been a
do.
real
Like, that's
source of
not
contention
science.
between CIA,
Hold on, John.
Justice Department, and Britain.
MI6 has been hiding
Yeah,
him. Are
that's
you
why
saying
it's
that
when
he
you deliberately
has been
leave bits
working
out.
for them?
Oh, I'm not saying it. This is what the Muslim
Yeah.
sheikh said in an interview in a British
Yeah,
newspaper back in 2001.
guess
Or
and
what?
theorize
He's a double
and
agent.
work
He's
with
working-
hypotheticals and
So he's
make
working
them
for the Brits to try to give them
actualities,
information
and
about Al-Qaeda, but in reality,
none of
he's
it really
still
matters. It
an
doesn't
Al-Qaeda
have to
operative.
actually relate
Yeah.
to
The CIA
reality.
and the Israelis all accused MI6 of letting all these
As long as we
terrorists live
say
in
it
London,
often enough, we'll make you
not because
believe
they were
it.
getting
That's all that
Al-Qaeda
matters.
information, but for appeasement. It was one of those "you leave us alone, we leave you alone" kind of things. Now we
Do you
knew
even
about this
science,
guy
bro?
Aswat back in 1999
Even
when he came to
science.
America.
Fucking
The
science,
Justice
bro.
Department wanted to indict him in
Yeah.
Seattle because him and his
Science!
buddy were
They
trying to set up a
blinded me with
terrorist training school in
science.
Oregon.
So they indicted his
They
buddy, right?
blinded
But why didn't they
her with
indict him?
science.
Well, it turns out we've just learned
And that's
that
why they
the
have
headquarters of the U.S. Justice
this
Department
group called
ordered
I
the
Fucking
Seattle
Love
prosecutors
Science.
not to touch us.
And all of these
Hello.
so-called
Now, hold on.
brainiacs,
Why?
intellectuals, they all
Well,
think that they're
apparently,
super
Aswat
smart
was
because
working
they
for British
throw
intelligence.
out some
In the
crap
weeks after
from this
7/7,
Facebook
Aswat
group,
was arrested
and they
in
think,
Zambia.
oh, look at
He
this
was
thing I
subsequently sent
learned
back
today.
to the UK and is still at this
Yeah,
moment
this piece
in
of
HMP
indoctrination
Belmarsh.
that you
The
picked
US
up.
are trying to
Yeah,
extradite
they
him
take it
back
home
to
and
Yeah.
show it off to
under
their
terrorist
family and
charges.
friends. Look at
Several
this.
media outlets
I know this.
I
have
fucking
reported that
love
Aswat was in
brainwashing.
communication
I
with
fucking-
so-called suicide bombers
I
on the
fucking
day of
love science.
7/7. Yet this
Yeah,
information,
I fucking love
although
science.
being taken
Me with
seriously by certain
drugs.
quarters in the intelligence
I can't remember
services,
which guy,
is
good
not being
comedian,
taken
but
seriously by the
I fucking
Met.
love science,
They have
me.
failed so far to question Aswat in
You
connection
what?
with a suspected role in the bombings. The intelligence
Yeah, I
community
know, it's so easy
considers
to
Al-Mujahideen,
make fun of
the
us.
organisation
Like,
that Aswat was
behind the-
associated with, to have been a British-based recruiting wing
behind the
of a
dull grey
larger
curtain.
terrorist network. It is
dull
understood
grey
that since the
curtain.
1990s,
Yeah, like
the
it's
British
all
security services have allowed
it's all
Muslims
really hard
to
to
be
work out.
recruited and trained
Nearly dead
in order
old
for them
men
to
in
fight
really
in
old
conflicts
buildings
around the world,
work it all
where
out.
their role
And you can't work
will
it
be
out.
beneficial
It's
to the
stupid.
state. Crispin Black, the former Cabinet Office
That whole
intelligence analyst,
paradigm, as
has
soon as you
suggested that the failure to
dissolve
pursue many
that,
terrorist
it's like,
suspects in Britain
your
is
shit's
as a
hilarious,
result
man.
of an appeasement
Science?
known as the
Not even
Covenant of
close.
Security. According to Black,
Plato'd be
this
rolling
refers
in
to the
his
long-standing
freaking
British habit
grave
of
there.
providing refuge and welfare to Islamic
And
extremists
Aristotle,
on the
he
unspoken
was a
assumption
bastard to the ball.
that if we give them a safe haven
Yeah.
here, they will not attack on these shores.
Conspiracy mystic said she loved scientism
There are
so
some
much she was sad to leave the cult
Carl
behind.
and the other men
Oh, me
were in
too. I still wish
contact with
it's
members
true.
of
I want
Al-Mujahideen.
the Jetsons
If this is
paradigm
true,
that they
then the
explained to
men
me
may
when
have
I
been
was,
assisted by
you know,
terrorists
10.
linked to the
Like,
organisation.
fuck yeah, I want that.
In other
So it'll
words,
take a long
it
time.
is
We need to
possible
take all your
that
money.
terrorists
My
trained
money.
with the aid
We're
of British
going to
intelligence
work in the street
agencies
and donate.
may have instructed and trained
We're going to have
the
the
four men.
Jetsons.
The government reports do not reveal whether associates of Al-Mujahideen were linked in any way to the bombings. Its spiritual leader, Omar Bakri, was banned from Britain shortly
Yeah,
after 7/7.
well,
As a
we
result,
all wanted the
he has yet to be
hoverboards and
questioned
everything, didn't
for his
we? But
possible role
it ain't happening.
And if the Earth's a ball,
It
then
is
I
also
can go
notable
back and
that
hang
the
out
reports
with my
make
family.
no attempt to assess the
What
warnings
do you mean?
provided by the
Apologise
Saudis, the
Oh,
Americans,
yeah.
and the French.
It's like there's a lot
A
of
leaked
friction
four-page
over
Joint Intelligence Committee
me.
report
You're not allowed to talk about
revealed
flat
that
Earth,
there
but
was
we're
prior
going to tell
knowledge
you about
plans
it,
to attack the London Underground
explain
network.
it. And when you
The
explain
reports
it, we just
again
kind of tell you
did
to
not
stop talking
reveal
about it. So
what this intelligence was based
Yeah.
on.
And I realised that was a short circuit cycle, and it meant that I couldn't
The events which
express
occurred
myself
on the
because that
21st
included in that
and
is
22nd of
conspiracy
July
stuff.
are
Even though
still
they all have their own
surrounded
level of
in mystery.
this bullshit going on.
All of
My
the men
mum
arrested for the instance
fully
on the 21st
comprehends the
pleaded not
concept
guilty
of worldwide
charges of attempted
corporate
murder
corruption, but she
and
thinks that's
conspiracy
it.
to
She
cause
thinks the government's still
explosions.
pretty cool.
Some claim to have
It's just
purposely
a few
made
dirt,
dummy
like,
bombs
yeah,
and
a
professed
few
that
odd
their plan
apples.
was to intimidate rather than to
Yeah,
kill.
my family's the same
Nothing
way.
about
Like
these
they see a
incidents
lot
appears
of
to
the
make any
problems. Like a lot
Why
of people
John
do,
Charles
you
de
know,
Menendez was shot over half a
they
dozen
aren't
times in the head
hiding that
as he boarded
aspect
the
of
tube in
it,
Stockwell
but
Station
they think it's
is also
normal and
still a matter
acceptable, and
with
that's
no
the way
satisfactory
life
explanation.
is, which is not
Yeah.
how
The
I
police
have
lied to the
ever
public
thought. It's
about
like,
his
no, this
behaviour.
is wrong.
And
And I
CCTV
guess
Big
I've
hug
been
to
very
Tiny.
critical to the investigation.
Huh?
Sorry, just big
was
hug to
tampered with,
big hug to Tiny.
although it is not clear by whom.
hi guys.
What is clear
But
is
like
that after
that's
these two events,
the
7th of July bombings quickly
that's
became old news.
the problem
Just at the very
is,
point.
I guess
Mainstream
in some ways I've always been
started to
very
ask pertinent
childlike and innocent in saying this is good and this is bad and this is right and this is wrong. And you can't do that. That's not right.
The terrorist alert level
And I
had been
think that
lowered
in a
more
way
than a
we
month
have to
before
be
the
that way
attacks,
because
from severe general
when
to substantial.
that nature is what
It is
they've
not clear
been
why
bashing out of us.
MI5
They've
advised the
been
government to reduce the threat.
trying to
meeting
That's what
destroy
everyone-
that
in Scotland
childlike nature.
was surely a time when security
Everyone who has
should have
a
been
really big
increased.
perception shift
We are united
towards truth,
in our resolve
towards betterment,
to confront and
because
defeat
it's
this
equal
terrorism
betterment for you and humanity.
that is not an
Anyone
attack
who gets that
on
has
one
a
nation,
new,
but on
a new
all
perception,
nations
a new appreciation.
and on civilized people
everywhere.
At the time,
Yeah, of just how
the G8
precious
had made little real progress
it all
on
is.
debt
Yeah,
relief
for want of a
or
better
abolishing
word, though.
poverty. But this fact was
Yeah.
barely reported due to the
Just how
inevitable
beautiful
focus
it is.
on the bombing.
Existence is.
The war on terror goes on. I was
Even
most impressed by
the
resolve
torture and
of
pain is kind of
all the leaders in the room.
It's like a
Their
very
resolve is as strong as
saturating
mine
experience.
And that is
Hey, I
to
had an idea.
not
I
yield to these people.
only
will not yield to the terrorists.
Since the
I
July
just
7
released
attacks,
that video that I was
further
talking
anti-terror
about
legislation has
before
been
to
passed.
Brian, unfortunately.
The
he's gone now,
biometric
but
identity
it's
scheme has been approved.
And I was
But
thinking
the
of playing
legislative
bits
and
of it and then
regulatory
chatting
reform
about it.
has been proposed.
Little 5 minutes
It
first. I think
would
it's
give
about
ministers the
half
power
an
to
hour
amend
and
any
then
law
the
passed
whole
by
thing.
Parliament.
Well,
But the
I
government
gotta
have taken
leave in
political
a
advantage
few minutes. About
using
15
the
minutes. I
effective
gotta
rallying
I gotta go.
I'll wait
seeking
for you.
support
I'll
for
wait for you.
changes
Go, yeah.
long on
No
their
worries.
agenda.
Yeah, Alice said
But
she's
yeah,
gonna
you-
Many who
pop
saw
in
these
soon,
laws
so
as evidence of increasing
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I
terrorism
sent. Look
prior
in
to
your
the
email, Alice. Yeah.
now see them as
Yeah.
acceptable in the climate of fear
oh, I
created
sent her the
by
link.
the bombings.
I didn't think
We
you'd
both
mind.
sent you
'cause-
the link. No, I'll always go straight.
Due to the conflicting and
Oh, that's
unconfirmed
awesome.
stories published in the
Yeah,
media
so stoked I've got to
and the distinct
catch up
lack
with everyone
of
today.
well-sourced
It's been a
information,
couple of weeks.
it is impossible to say
Longer
exactly
for
what
some of them.
happened in London.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
got really
7th
used
of
to
July
talking about this stuff
2005.
every weekend. I look forward to it.
Two
I
government
thought about what I was going to
reports
say.
make no attempt to explain
Yeah, well,
the
I'm
anomalies
gonna
in the explosives
get back
used.
to making more
They make
streams
no
because
reference to the
I
Yeah,
coincidence
you're on
can't.
later,
of a
that's right.
counter-terrorist
That's
exercise taking place that morning.
Well, I
They
can't
do not
upload
investigate Harun
really
Rashid
big
Aswad,
videos because
reported to
my
be both the
internet is
mastermind
not
of
that
the
great,
attacks
so I have to go
and
to
an MI6
Starbucks to
agent.
do it, which is a pain in the
The
butt.
inquiries do not deal
But
with the current video or the
so
Al-Qaeda claims.
if I'm gonna make a long,
most
lengthy
importantly,
video, it's
there is
probably
no
going to be a
attempt to
live
explain
chat.
why there are so few CCTV
Or it'll be
images
few and far between
of the
because there are a
men
lot of
in
topics I
London
do want
and in
to
Luton.
talk about
If there is no definitive proof that the men were
independently,
suicide bombers,
just to get
then
the
why
information
isn't
out.
this made clear?
But
The two government reports
it's such
do
an
not
ordeal.
give a detailed or definitive account. They only
But
raise
I
questions
still
than they
want
answer.
to. I still want to
British
revisit
public
this
must
topic
question
of
why
the
ministers will not allow open and
magnetism
independent
and the
scrutiny
nature of
of
our
the evidence.
reality. I still want to talk about
The
that
British
at another
people
time.
must exercise their
And
democratic rights and insist there is a full-scale
there's
inquiry
also
Sorry, I just
other
saw a
into the
comment.
events of July the 7th.
You're keep going. I just saw a comment on it.
Yeah, I just want to talk about that at another time. So
Yeah.
we can. And I also want to like do some more research in it to understand it a little bit more. And
if you do find the time, have a look through that ferrocell, get into just the viewing of the geometry and that. But it's interesting how he constructs it. It should be all the videos at the beginning or the end.
I mean, are you asking us to do or
At one end of that playlist
we'll see about to review in a moment. So
This is a professional
Develop.
Hey,
Hello, Alice. You're not very loud.
You're very quiet.
Can you louder, Roz?
There we go. How's that? Can you hear me now?
I got a magic button here
Little
that I
bit.
can turn you up. Try again. Talk again.
How am I now?
Pretty good.
They've got a contact
Still
number
a
they
little
can
bit
hear. Oh, I haven't got a mobile on me, mate.
Cool, no worries.
So your number was?
I want to hear the whole timbre of your lovely voice. I'll pull that volume down a bit more.
I bet that's better.
Yes,
Oh,
it
yeah,
is.
that's nice.
I thought so.
I'm going to turn you up anyway, even though it doesn't need it.
Much better.
Happy daylight. How is everyone?
Happy daylight.
Very good. It's daylight somewhere on the plane.
It's
It is
daylight
over.
here.
It is over on this part anyway.
Yeah, so it's 5 p.m. in England. It's London time, and it's 12 o'clock on the east coast of the US, and it's 2 a.m. in the morning on Sunday in Australia, because the upper hemisphere, hemiplane, the northern hemiplane is so yesterday.
So yesterday.
My little flat Earth joke.
I love the conversation